this is Daniel Norton and welcome to the first portcast for pre-season 2012-2013. It's great to have your company with us. Now, if you missed the in-season editions of the portcast, they're interviews based around our great football club, whether it be past player interviews pertaining to current club or supporter information, or indeed contemporary player and coach interviews. Today, our podcast fits into that latter category, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome our new Director of Coaching and Strategy, Richardson, to the Port Adelaide Football Club, and to this first pre-season edition of the podcast. Richo, welcome aboard.
Good to be here, Nort.
Great to have you on board. You've got a fascinating football background and a football career involving a few clubs as a coach and also a great playing career with Collingwood. Can we wind the clock back to where it all began for you in terms of your football background?
Well, prior to going into play with the Maggies, I played all my junior footy at the club that my father played at. That's the Eastfield Footy Club in the Eastern District competition in Melbourne. Dad played in Six Flags there, so a little bit of Port Adelaide-like history with respect to success. And so that was the natural follow-on, even though we didn't live in that area. I had to travel a bit to play there. But so played all my junior footy there. And then Barry Price, former Collingwood champion, became the senior coach out at Eastfield, and so he got me into Collingwood. That was pre-draft days. So we're going back a while. Okay. But so that's how it all began. And
you grew up with football, obviously, with your father playing. You every Saturday involved either going watching him play or going and watching some form of football.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in the scoreboard. I got a pie and a Coke to do the scoreboard. If I wasn't doing the scoreboard, I was climbing up these massive pine trees that were right behind the goals. The footies would get stuck, so that was part of my role, to climb a 40-foot pine tree and get the ball out if it got stuck up there.
With your senior career, was it a bit of a battle early? Were you on the North Melbourne list for a while?
I was. I started because of zoning back then, and I lived in Ferntree Gully. That was part of the Kangaroos area. So I actually was zoned to go and play, even though I was actually training. So Barry Price had invited me or made sure that I got an invitation to go to Collingwood. I then went to Collingwood and trained, but the Kangaroos mid-year just put me on their list.
Yeah.
So I didn't even realise, actually.
Yeah.
Then got the letter, went in and played. So that was under the great John Kennedy as coach, who was absolutely fantastic. And when you then think that Lee Matthews became a coach, it was pretty similar in terms of the messaging, but I was fairly immature. Didn't take it as seriously as I should have, and so those sort of experiences really helped me in terms of the role that I play now. I have played in the various roles with younger players, but so that didn't work. Got the flick the following year, went back to Eastfield. I was lucky enough to play in a premiership there, and then went down and started my career in '87 with the Maggies.
Went on to play 114 games for Collingwood, wearing the number 13 Guernsey. And mixed success. I mean, the club had that magnificent result in 1990 where that long premiership drought was broken against the Bombers. But you've got a fascinating story, I guess, to tell in regards to that, because you played for the majority of the year. In fact, I think you played in the second semi and Adrian Burns cracked into you and didn't make it into the grand final side. Can you tell us can you tell us the story behind that?
Well, the year was probably my first year of really consolidating my position in the team. I think I was 23 years of age, so pretty late. I'd been a late mature from a footy perspective. Perhaps my now wife, then girlfriend, would say late mature in many ways. I was a bit of a lad, but no, I'd certainly struggled up until then, 2 or 3 years of basically playing reserves footy, and if not for Lee Matthews being the coach, the chance I would have been delisted. Lee Matthews came from the Hawthorn Footy Club, where everyone played 100 games of reserve footy, whether you're Robert DiBiase-Menko. Yeah, so I was pretty lucky from that point of view. And then, as I mentioned, got my spot, kept my spot, but unfortunately in the second semi, Burns on top of me going for a ground ball and broke my collarbone. So that was it really, except for, I'd been a Collingwood supporter my whole life. We're going to break this massive premiership drought. So I did whatever I could, and whilst it was still an unrealistic chance, I gave myself every opportunity, so fitness tests and elephant juice and all that sort of stuff to make sure that I could try and play anyway, and got to the final Thursday night training session and re-broke the collarbone when Lee gave me a fitness test.
So was it true gave you a fitness test late in the session, like when you were walking off, or is that mythology? It's a normal one?
Yeah, no, there's a little bit of mythology to that, but certainly the last part of the fitness test, he changed what we would normally do, and certainly changed what he told me he was going to do, so that I was completely taken by surprise. In fact, it was reported the next day in the paper that we'd had a fight out in the middle of the ground because there was a tackling drill that was really predictable. Richo, you go that way. This is Lee obviously talking now. I'll come in from your left, from your right, test you out physically. And then it was done. And then he said, look, one more. He'd obviously thought, I really need to test this bloke.
Yeah.
And basically, I just want you coming straight on now, and I'll just come in. Well, he just basically, Lee then was only 2 years out of the game.
I was going to say, he'd only recently retired.
So we're talking about a really strong, robust bloke coming at you, all 95 kilos of him, and he basically just steamrolled me. But in my want and desire to prove my fitness, I've hung on to him, and I liken it a little bit like perhaps a wild cat trying to hang on to a zebra. So this big thing coming at you, but you're hanging on from the front.
Yeah.
And it did look like, in fact, some of the players thought we'd had a blue too, because I've then rolled on top of him and pinned him on the ground in terms of trying to prove that I was right to go. But once I'd cooled down, I basically couldn't lift my arm after that, so obviously couldn't play.
What was the emotion on grand final day for you? Because I would, and we said every year, we see players miss out who played all year, and whether it be through injury or being dropped. I mean, what is the emotion? I mean, it must be so difficult sitting there watching. Did you go to the game?
I did go to the game. In fact, it became part of the. I became part of the gamesmanship, if you like, because whilst it was decided I wasn't going to play, Lee didn't want to show his hand. In fact, Ronnie McEwen was dressed in the rooms, ready to play, and was pulled out late. That was more a decision from Lee. He didn't know whether he was going to go with Ronnie McEwen or Craig Starcevich. He went with Stars. So I went to the grand final parade. I was involved out on the ground beforehand.
Knowing you weren't playing? Knowing
that I wasn't going to play, yeah. But that was okay. I was a young bloke that had only just started to cement, footy is cyclical from an athlete's perspective. You're just trying to get a game. You cement your spot in the team. That's probably 3 or 4 years worth, really. And then you're thinking, geez, I want to be a premiership player. I probably hadn't quite got to that stage yet. And naively, given we were such a young group, just presumed we'd do it again. And then, we lost the great Darren Malone the year after. The wheels fell off, really. We were a pretty good team then in 92, but just didn't get the opportunity. So it's later on in life. And I'll get back to your question, but it's later on in life when you see the guys go up and get their medal, you think, gee whiz, I was so close and was picked in the team to play, but obviously didn't play. But on the day, I just stood in the race. Actually, I didn't. There was too many people feeling sorry for me everywhere I went, in the players' enclosure. For example, the girls and the
players. Get away from it.
Yeah, I just didn't want to get that much sympathy all day. In fact, you become a bit emotional when it happens. So just watch from the race.
And you celebrated?
I did, I did. But even that was awkward, because you go down and celebrate with someone who's just achieved the ultimate, the holy grail in footy, and they look at you and they feel sorry for you.
With pity.
So that was tough, but that's footy.
Yeah, well, sad, but you obviously learned a lot from it, and you went on to play until the end of 1996, like I said, over 100 games for Collingwood. Then your coaching career started, I would imagine, in the late 90s. Can you just walk us through your coaching career? Because I know you've been at 3 or 4 AFL clubs in different roles, but I think you started back at your father's club at East Burwood.
I did, yeah. That was just sensational. Really briefly, there's a club in the Eastern Footy League with a history not unlike the Port Adelaide Footy Club when we were in the SANFL, and that's the Vermont Footy Club. Certainly in the period leading up to that, they'd been in, I think, 18 out of the last 22 grand finals.
Amazing.
They just won it every year, basically. And so in the 3 years that I went back to East Burwood, we played Vermont in the seniors, in the reserves, and in the under-18s in the last 2 years.
Yep.
And we won 5 out of those 6 premierships. So that was just fantastic to be able to have our footy club beat their footy club. It was like that. It was not just the team versus their team. It was club v club.
Yep. Brilliant.
In that last period, in that last year at East Burwood, so that would have been 2000. I formed a relationship with the Richmond Footy Club. They were looking for players to complement their reserves when they got injuries. They had their own team, a bit like the way clubs are going back to now.
Yeah,
but they had their own team and they needed top-up players. And so I formed a relationship with Danny Frawley, who was the coach of the Richmond Footy Club. And so when they decided to have their own club the following year, the Coburg Tigers, I was appointed coach of that team. Okay. So at that stage I've made a decision, I'm going to have a crack at coaching. I enjoy it. I think I'm okay at it, so I wanted to see how far I could go. So that was fantastic. 2 years there at Coburg,
Yes.
basically coaching their VFL side, working with guys like Newman and Cracker, Zantuck,
Yes.
Edney, etc. So that was really enjoyable. Then Peter Rode came knocking. He was appointed the coach. He'd already been coach. He'd done I think 3 or 4 games when Terry Wallace had stepped down.
Yeah,
might have actually
in
only been one
2002.
game. Might have only been the last game. Yeah, and so and he interviewed me for, actually it was for the VFL position, but decided that I'd be an assistant coach, a line coach. So I worked there for 3 years, the final year with Rodney Eade. Then went back to my roots, if you like, to the Collingwood Footy Club. Set up an academy that I'm really proud of. In many ways, it's probably changed the landscape of the way coaching structures are set up at footy clubs now, with development coaches, etc. Because we were the pioneers in that area of coaching.
Yep.
Then the Essendon Footy Club to support Matthew Knights. Then the Carlton Footy Club with Brett Ratton, and so we're working with young coaches at times, as it's turned out, is a bit of a risk, because if that doesn't work, and I'm talking about a risk for them.
Yes.
If that doesn't work, then they generally get moved on reasonably quickly. So there were some tough times there, but you learn from the tough times. You probably learn more from your tough times. So philosophically, those experiences have been really good for me in terms of what I reckon an elite program should look like, and that's where I find myself today. I'll call it Ken's right hand man, but in many ways, making sure that the work that I do with Ken is to ensure that we get incredible transfer to the games, that our players are absolutely totally understanding of what's required to A, play Ken's way, but B, to have the ultimate success. And so it's really challenging. So far it's been incredibly rewarding and a lot of fun.
And you assist the other coaches as well in terms of their development? We've got a relatively young assistant coaching group.
Yeah, well, the question was, do I assist them as well? No, that's primarily my role. My role, when I say to ensure we get transfer to the game and to make sure that players understand, we're teaching them correctly. Okay. I mean that, I'm certainly overseeing and working with a pretty inexperienced coaching group to make sure that we can be as good as we can be, to make sure that we provide an elite environment for the players.
Your relationship with Ken Hinkley before you got the job here, did you know each other that much?
No, not at all. Certainly knew of him. Massive raps on him within the industry. Obviously been involved in a really successful program for a long time down at Geelong, and the word around town was that he'd had a really big part to play and all that. So I had enormous respect for him. Had seen him around as you do. You see guys watching footy, watching opposition games. We both been down to the last couple for the St Kilda Footy Club senior coaching job, and we actually crossed paths twice in that interview process, so acknowledged each other there. But no, and it was really important that once Ken was appointed, that we got together, given the club had been speaking to me about this role, and made sure that he was comfortable and that it was going to work, and it was very much in line with his plan. So it's a really good fit.
You said you've enjoyed the first few months here, and that's great, and we've enjoyed having you on board, Richo. Who has impressed you, and what do you love about Port Adelaide?
Well, I'll talk about what I love about Port Adelaide and the role that I have. It'd be really frustrating if you came to a footy club in the role that I have, if it is that they weren't aiming high, if it is that they were thinking, woe is me, that we're not up there with the big boys financially, that we're in survival mode. That would be a real worry, and I say that because that was a concern of mine, that, where are we at as a footy club? Well, that couldn't be any further from the truth. This footy club, probably based on its incredible successful history, is about winning. And so from that point of view, it's an honour that they come knocking on your door, and everything that I see from everyone at the footy club is about making sure that we can be the best and ultimately get back to where Port Adelaide needs to be, and that's winning premierships. What has impressed me the most, though, you said who has, I'll just say the players. There's been some significant changes to the list. There's been a fair bit of work going to what we need from a football attributes point of view, but probably as much done in terms of the type of person that we want here, in terms of the culture that we want to create, and to see the vigour in which they've attacked the changes that we've made, the work the incredibly challenging work that Darren Burgess, our new fitness guy, has thrown at them. It's just been inspiring to us as coaches. So, I'm probably speaking on Ken's behalf here too. We've just been incredibly excited by their appetite to work and to want to embrace the change.
Finally, as we're on the cusp of 2013, a final message to Port Adelaide members?
Well, personally, I'm looking forward to meeting people, whether they be at social functions or games, but certainly from a football perspective, if this message is about what your expectations should be, we're all about significant improvement, not just improvement. We will be a really hard footy team to beat. We'll be incredibly competitive. We'll move the ball reasonably quickly. You just think of the teams that Ken's been involved with, the Geelong Footy Club in particular. And I think that we'll be a fairly aggressive footy team. There's no doubt, but part of the program that we've put in place is designed to make sure that we are really aggressive. And if I can talk from a Carlton perspective, last year at the loss that we suffered to Port Adelaide, 10 goals.
Yep.
When for 4 quarters they were massively in the Carlton Footy Club, probably a more talented team at that stage in their face. But that just wasn't able to happen consistently enough, and so that's what we're looking for. When we talk about improvement, we're talking about consistency of what we know is here. We just want to make sure we bring it every week.
Richo, very exciting. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on our podcast for our first pre-season one. Welcome to the football club. It's great to have you on board. You've been fantastic thus far, and we look forward to 2013.
Good on you.
Thank you.